Good morning, everybody, and welcome back to another episode. Uh-oh. What's that? We got feedback. There we go. Welcome, everybody, and welcome back to another episode of The Uninformed Fan. I hope everyone's having a great day. It's great to have everyone in here. First off, I have to say thanks for all the love on the social media, guys. We're trying something a little bit different here, and you guys have absolutely been showing the love on TikTok, Instagram, Facebook, all of that. Appreciate you guys. Jeffrey, looking good today, sporting the dad hat.
Yeah. I really don't. Excuse me. I just ate a granola bar.
Helps to wash those down with liquids.
I might die live on air right now, and that'd be great content for you.
Will YouTube ban
you know
us
how
for
the
that,
internet
though?
is. I don't know. Do you see the couple that was eating a burger and doing a food review and got hit by a car through a restaurant? Wow.
I did.
Crazy stuff.
That's crazy. You know, I also said,
Mm.
did you see the
My
video of the veterinary clinic that somebody drove their car into the gas line and completely exploded the whole thing?
I did not see that one. No.
Imagine just in there getting your dog's butt checked out and boom, man. It's
Why
a
is it
crazy
gotta be
world.
your dog's butt?
Because what else would it be?
I mean, it could be a bevy of different things, and I
Could've
don't
been.
think
I chose the butt, Jeff. I chose the butt.
culo was where we were going to go with that, but
Well, the
here we are.
culo is where it's at. And you know where it's at? It's right here on The Uninformed Fan. Let's get into it. We got a lot of stuff to get into today. We're going to start off with a little bit of NFL preseason. We're going to touch on a few things. We're going to break down the AFC and the best division in football, the NFC North. Give you some fantasy targets and our projections of the trajectory. Also, touch on just a hair of college football as we are in week 0. This week on the preseason NFL football, I did get to watch a little bit, but not a whole lot. There was a few games that I was definitely dialed into. Obviously, my eyes are always going to be locked on the Tampa Bay Buccaneers when Kyle Trask takes the field. Teddy Bridgewater gets a start this week. I was, as far as a Trask fan, it was kind of concerning to see Bucky Irving starting behind Teddy. I don't know what that entails or anything of that nature, but I did watch Kyle this week, and yeah, he did not look good. It looks like he feels the heels upon him in regards to that secondary quarterback position. I don't think he felt it the week before. I don't know. He just didn't really look very good. We'll see what comes out with the depth charts. No Baker, obviously. Of course, no Mike Evans. Godwin is going to be out still. Another big blow, though, is Jalen McMillan suffered a concussion, and he will not be ready for the week one. Which to me,
it's a neck strain, something to do with his neck. So
yeah, well, he had the concussion, and then and the neck strain as well. I mean, if you watch the play, he got flipped up and he basically bent his neck backwards forwards, I guess, when he landed. Bad for Jalen McMillan, the Bucs, but we're now seeing even bigger upside to Jeffrey Ima Ebukele.
Emeka Egbuka.
Emeka Egbuka. So yeah.
Okay. Yeah. That was as close as we're gonna get. I feel like
think so.
Beggars can't be choosers here, and I should probably just be like all of a sudden let that one go.
Absolutely.
Yes. Emeka Egbuka.
Egbuka.
Yes.
I like Egbuka. I can do that.
Yeah.
Egg.
No, listen, it's a deep room, and unfortunately, a couple little nicks and scratches here. But I think the way the Bucs are going to go into this year and the way they're going to view everything is to really kind of slow play, make sure everybody's 100% healthy. The schedule at the beginning is pretty tough as it is. And then you really thin out at the very end of the year, which I'm sure we'll discuss next week whenever we break down the South divisions.
Absolutely. Relax, Bucs fans. As we've talked about already, that Tampa Bay offense is so deep. I wouldn't even sweat it. And as far as the Kyle Trask talk, that's honestly just a homer talk on my pick. Nobody's really concerned about who the backup's going to be.
And listen, I'll say this. I mean, they obviously got Teddy Bridgewater. Teddy looked great. Emeka catches his first touchdown against the Steelers. But I also liked what I saw from Tez Johnson, the guy in the 7th round who we took out of Oregon, who's the smallest player in the NFL. He's just lightning in a bottle. He had a great punt return. We just ran to his own guy. Otherwise, he would have taken that one to the house. He's best friends with Bucky Irving. And obviously, if you have a room that deep, you're going to lose somebody. Somebody else is going to have to step up. There's just more of an opportunity for, a Trey Palmer or a
absolutely. I would think there's one position on the Bucs, and again, we're not going to go into this too deep because we're talking about next week. Is the tight end maybe not quite as depth as all the other ones, but no worries there, Bucs fans. Everything's going to be all right. One thing that might not be all right is the shaky start out of Cam Ward in Tennessee on his secondary start here. I didn't get to see it, but I did see a lot of the highlights, and obviously all the talking heads are talking about it. Social media does its thing. Obviously, here at the Uninformed Fan, there's a reason we have that title, and that is to highlight all of the armchair quarterbacks that are out there in the world, in the Twitter universe, that can just make flyby decisions. Cam Ward is already a bust. We're needing to move on. I mean, what a roller coaster of emotions for Tennessee Titans fans. The number 1 pick looks awesome. Now he's a bust in week 2.
Right. Yeah, armchair quarterback overreaction Monday. Definitely in full effect. No, listen, Cam's going to struggle here and there. I mean, it just is what it is. He's a rookie. He's not coming in. I think he's going to be fine this year. I have my issues that I've had with Cam in the past. I think sometimes he gets too nonchalant and lazy with the football in terms of holding it out when he's kind of bouncing around the pocket. I think the things that worked in college sometimes with being able to just sidestep guys and playing really slow will be a benefit in some instances in the NFL, but it's also going to be a different speed of the game, and how does he adjust and catch up to that going in. So, but I think Cam Ward, to me, was the best quarterback in the draft. I think the Titans nailed it. I think he's going to be great. It just, you got to shore up those little things.
He definitely was the best quarterback of the draft, but was it a very good quarterback class to begin with?
Well, we've said that too. I do like Jackson Dart as well too. I think Jackson will be absolutely fine.
Who looked really sharp.
I don't understand a team like New Orleans, for instance, not hitting up the Browns about a Shedeur Sanders or hitting up the Giants about a Jameis Winston.
Well, to that point, the report is out of New York that multiple teams have already reached out about Jameis Winston.
They should. I mean, he looked great. Did you see that throw that he made, rolling out to the right, and put a dive into I forget whose hands that was, right down the sideline. It's just
listen. Nobody's gonna, as much as I want to shit talk a Florida State quarterback, nobody's gonna doubt what Jameis Winston can do. All right, it's what does Jameis Winston do consistently in order to win football games? Obviously, just a great personality. I love it, man. I love it. All of his bits. He is a human highlight reel 24/7. He could have his own reality show. We already did talk about the NFC East, but I will tell you this. The Giants look like what we might want to call a sleeping giant. One of the ones that they can really get in there and make some waves when nobody's really expected them to make waves. But, yeah, they could be making waves. And to your point, the Shedeur Sanders thing to me is just mind-boggling. There was some stuff that came out of this camp, with the Cleveland and Dylan Gabriel talking about there's performers and then there's doers,
entertainers and then there's competitors or something.
Yeah, entertainers and competitors. This is something that he's said before. Of course, all of the Shedeur Sanders lovers jumped right on this. Is like, targeting him. Dylan, of course, came out and said, look, I've said this before. I just want a game. I just want to hear to play. The Browns continue to be the dumpster fire of the NFL with their 4 quarterbacks, also naming Joe Flacco their starter. It's just a wild organization.
Yeah, it's interesting. I too do not understand the Shedeur Sanders thing in Cleveland of not giving him a shot, of drafting him in the first place, of sticking him as the 4th and 5th option on this team in terms of at quarterback. It feels slimy. It feels dirty. And then Flacco not getting any reps, and you're just going to automatically name him the starter. I don't know. There's a lot going on in Cleveland. Judkins still has not signed, who I think, regardless of what we want to say, will be a very interesting player once he gets on the team. Keyshawn Judkins, who was a beast at Ole Miss, who transfers to Ohio State, who shares that running back room with Travion Henderson. They do what they did last year in winning a national championship. And we're really, in my opinion, one of the focal points, as well as Jeremiah Smith and, obviously, a guy like Will Howard being able to give him the ball. But I think when Judkins gets back, being a running back of that offense, it's not going to be a huge curve where he's going to have to pick up a bunch of stuff and learn it real quick. He should be able to step right in, and I think you could see him being an asset come, I don't know, middle of October, somewhere around there.
Well, let's get into it. Let's get into the AFC North. We've already transitioned into the Browns. Let's start at the dumpster fire at the bottom of the AFC North, which is the Cleveland Browns at 3-14. Just a booming year last year. Obviously they went on all the Watson thing. Everyone, that contract, everybody was like, holy crap. I think that the Cleveland Browns have essentially nixed those types of contracts for all years to come. They obviously bring in Joe Flacco, like you just said. They name him the starter. They have Kenny Pickett they bring in. It's just a dumpster fire, man. You have Dylan Gabriel. You bring in Deontay Johnson, which, again, I had Deontay Johnson when he was with Carolina. I was excited to see him go to the Ravens. Just a cancer there as well. If you can't make it with Lamar Jackson, and so where do we go? We go back to the Cleveland Browns, where the more dumpster fire that there just is. There's organizations, they lose Nick Chubb. It is what it is. Their over under is 5.5, and I still think that's going to be a reach. I think they'll get those sneaky wins. Joe Flacco, I think, obviously gives you, I guess, the better opportunity. But at this point, if you're the Cleveland Browns, you're sitting in the AFC North. Do you really think you're making the playoffs this year? Absolutely not. And if you are, you're absolutely delusional. So why would you start a 42-year-old or 41-year-old veteran, which you know exactly what you're going to get? Let the kids play. You're not going anywhere. Let the kids play and see what happens. I just don't. I don't understand what they're doing over there. As far as fantasy targets on the Cleveland Browns, we have Jerome Ford, we have Keyshawn Judkins, which you just said. David Njoku, I think, is probably going to be one of the highest value tight ends, just exactly for that reason, because Joe Flacco will be dumping it off, probably running for his life before he tears an Achilles like Aaron Rodgers. And then you have Jerry Jeudy. But to your point, what you talked about also with Arizona is the Cleveland Browns are going to be playing from behind pretty much the entire season. So do we a Jameis Winston type Jerry Jeudy where they're just throwing the ball all over, I don't know. I mean, to me, I think after David Njoku and Jerome Ford, to your point, I think that the Judkins can get in there. I'm not seeing a whole lot of fantasy value coming out of the Cleveland Browns this year.
No, it's the long and the short of it, right? You have Kevin Stefanski and you have this upper management who are going into a situation where they need to prove that they've made some right decisions and hit on some draft picks and made some right things happen. And it's kind of a prove it year. So there's weird conundrum of like, you don't want to tank because you don't want to be terrible. It's going to be a lost season and you could potentially lose your job. So it's the weird thing of, do you develop players and do you let the young guys try to play early and see what you have? Or do you kind of hold off and promise this future of, listen, Dylan Gabriel was the guy that we drafted in the 3rd round. We really like him. I think he's going to be the quarterback of the future. We want him to sit behind Joe for a year, whatever it is. To me, I think they're just in a really weird spot right now. I love Stefanski. I think Stefanski's a great coach, and it sucks to see it kind of turn out like this. Do I think their offense will be better than it was last year? Absolutely. There's really only way it can go, except for when Jameis was out there. But the days of DTR out there trying to throw the ball to Jerry Jeudy are finally gone. So listen, Jeudy will be. I don't think he'll be what he was when Jameis was there, but I do think he will be a serviceable wide receiver. I do think Njoku will be fine. Like you said, Ford will be fine. But I'm not running to grab any of these players.
Absolutely.
And I will still take the under 5.5, but I do think their defense will be fine as well too with Myles Garrett.
Well, yeah, they do have Myles Garrett. They also picked up they also picked up who did they draft? Did they pick up a nice target on the draft? No, maybe that was them. Myles Garrett's going to be Myles Garrett. They also 3-time just put in. They also just signed Isaiah Bond.
Okay.
So undrafted free agent. So it looks like they're trying to do some things. Who knows what's going to
happen? Isaiah Bond was a 5-star recruit coming out of high school. He's one of the most highly touted wide receivers going into college. There was a big recruitment battle. I think he started his career with Alabama. I'm not really sure. But I know he ended up at Texas. There was a situation that happened, I believe, where he was charged. There was an accusation that was made. He was going through a bunch of legal things and trouble and just basically got, I don't know if
dismissed.
Exonerated is the correct word, but dismissed not too many, I guess, a week ago or whatever it was. And that's why his stock fell so hard. And so this is kind of a nice, maybe a redemption story for him. But he's a speedster. He's a kid who can burn the field. He can stretch the defense. You already have that in Jerry Jeudy. I feel like you kind of need a possession receiver. Amari Cooper would have been cool, but you let him go for a bag of chips. But to
your point, that's Spencer Tillman and Jamari Thrash.
And I do think Tillman will be a little bit of a sleeper in fantasy that people aren't going to target or even talk about. Who, if you look at his numbers on what he did last year, was a pretty decent wide receiver toward the end of the year, especially when Jameis Winston was out there. So, I could see the same thing kind of come to fruition with Flacco.
I think you'll be able to get Tillman probably after the draft if you really want to. Moving up next, it's still crazy to me to think that the Cincinnati Bengals were the 3rd best team in this division, missing the playoff as well. Al Golden comes in and replaces Lou as defensive coordinator. We bring in Noah Fant. We got Chase and Higgins locked up. They got Shamar Stewart, which they finally got his contract done, and they bring in Demetrius Knight and Brett Carr for some linebacker depth. Trey Henderson is still holding in. And we had Joe Burrow out there running for his life in preseason games. I don't know if you got to watch this. Joe Burrow was literally running for his life in a preseason game. He got sacked a few times, which to me, if I was a Bengals fan, I was kind of holding my breath there a little bit. I mean, the Cincinnati Bengals are in absolute trouble. I mean, to the point of, some of the talking heads that we don't really agree with half the time. We just don't like them. You locked up all of this money with T. Higgins and Jamar Chase and Joe Burrow. I think those 3 are like 36% of the entire salary cap between 3 players, which is, obviously high. But you also have Trey Henderson, who led the league in sacks last year, had a great production the year before that. But again, as we've talked about before, if you have a 4-year contract, that's really a 3-year contract, and he's holding in to get the big deal. Apparently the numbers are there. However, the guaranteed money is not. And that's obviously a big stickler for him. Obviously, we're trying to set up your family. The over-under is 8.5. I mean, we're talking about the Cincinnati Bengals that has went 9-8 the last 2 years, and we still have this total of 8.5, and it has nothing to do with the offense, who continues to put up record numbers. We're talking about this defense, and this defense, from what I saw already, is absolute shambles. And I don't know exactly how many of their starters they threw out there. I didn't look at the full depth chart of that preseason game too, but my goodness, they got absolutely torched, and they got torched from the beginning. I don't know, man. I think the Cincinnati Bengals are once again in trouble. It's going to be a shootout. Now, on the fantasy side, oh, buddy, feed me. Obviously, Joe Burrow, Jamar Chase, T. Higgins are locks. Chase Brown, still good. I'll tell you a sneaky one that I like is going to be Samaje Perine. I think that's going to be a sneaky pick. Because why? Because they're going to be throwing it all of the time. Chase Brown is going to get tired. I think you're going to see some sneaky moves out of Perine, who's pretty much going undrafted. And then, of course, you have Avise, and I don't know. Obviously, I didn't spread that right. And then you have Mike Gesicki. But obviously, your 3 targets are going to be the big 3. Oh, man, dude. I would love to say that the Bengals are going to at least win 9 games again this year. I don't see how they got any better in the offseason. I really don't.
Yeah, I agree. I mean, I think they got better because they've locked up their future long term, and that's an important thing. And I do think having T. Higgins and Jamar Chase and Joe Burrow and that 3-headed monster there eventually will bring you a Super Bowl. But the problem is that other than that, you have been terrible. And we mentioned the front office and the ownership years ago on why would you not just sign Jamar Chase to this contract? It's going to cost you more in 2 years, and you're just kind of waiting this out. It makes no sense when it's going to cost you an extra $10 million if you sign them 2 years from now down the road per year. So I don't think that they're very wise when it comes to a lot of that stuff. You saw a situation with Shamar Stewart, who is in camp, but listen, this defense is terrible. And when it's terrible and they're talking about trading Trey Hendrickson already, where do you think it's going to go? And I agree with you. There's a lot of situations in fantasy where I'm going to look at and say, I know a team is going to commit slowly to this, and I want a part of that. Or there's other situations where you're going to look at and say, this team's defense is going to be absolute trash. Their offense is going to have to try to put up numbers, and because of that, I want a part of them as well too. And this is one of those situations right here. It's going to be very interesting to see what happens. I have the second pick in our fantasy draft in our big league, and will Jamar Chase be available to me to draft? Will he not?
Yes.
You think John's
yes.
running back?
It's crazy. I've seen obviously as I told you and everybody, obviously I'm the defending champion. Everyone looks up to me for fantasy advice. I get it. But the more fantasy drafts that I have done and continue to do, the run on running backs in the first round is getting insane to the point where I've seen CeeDee Lamb drop to late round 2. I've seen, Malik Neighbors drop to 3. Now, again, these are just randos on the internet that you're just jumping in an ESPN pool. But, I mean, it's just going to depend on how your draft goes. I would, unless somebody has the strategy with the number 1 pick. Okay, so you got the number 1 pick. Obviously, Jamar Chase is, fantasy-wise, supposedly the number 1 pick.
I hope John's in the chat right now.
To me, if you're going to do that and you're going to take Jamar Chase as number 1, then you're coming back on the back end and you're getting a running back on 2, and you're taking Joe Burrow on round 3 because it's not coming back to you. Joe Burrow's not going to come back to you in round 4, in my opinion. If you have that stack, as Marcus Buffington proved last year, you can do a lot of good things. I had T. Higgins, he had Jamar Chase, and he had Joe Burrow. We, unfortunately, we did not meet in the fantasy finals. Thank goodness. Thank you. But yeah, I don't know, man. I don't know. We're both on kind of the same mindset as, running back, fill in the wide receivers where you can. But if you could get a pair like that, I don't know, man. But you're in the same position in pick 2, okay? Because of the same token, if they don't go that route, okay, nobody's taking Joe Burrow at pick 1 coming back. If you don't have, you're in the same boat. I don't know. I wouldn't want to be on the front end of this draft this year, to be perfectly honest with you. I'm very happy with my position in picking 9.
I don't mind it because I do feel like there is a drop off of there is Bijan Robinson, there is Saquon Barkley, and there's Jahmyr Gibbs. And then after that, there's a second tier. And I think when you're talking about having a first round pick, you kind of want a guarantee. Now, I'll say this. I don't know why we're not talking about it, but Chase Brown last year was a top 10 fantasy running back. And
yeah. We're not talking about it because both of us are trying to sneakily get him in the second.
1,000%. The way that you just played that down of Chase Brown will be there, of course. And I'm just like, get the fuck out of here. Yeah, I mean, he's a top 10 fantasy running back. He's a do-it-all 3-down back, truly. So I just think the sky is the limit. That's a guy that I'm going to be looking to possibly get back on the end around as well, too. So, listen, we love their fantasy upside. I hate their real life team.
Do they get to the 9 wins? You got to also think that the last couple of years, they both have gotten off to just an absolute dismal start, like 1-4, 2-4, something of that nature. And they've come back to win 9 games every year. Do they get to the 9 games this year and hit the over?
Give me 1 second. As bad as their defense just looked against the Washington freaking Commanders, I'm having a hard time here. Let's see. Okay.
I mean, because at the end of the day, if you have a good defensive coordinator, you know what they got to do. You're just going to bull rush Joe Burrow the whole time. That offensive line looked like it was getting torn to shreds as well. And if you didn't have your first team offensive line with Joe Burrow in preseason, then what are you doing as a head coach as well?
Yeah, I mean, they get what is this NFC North that they're playing?
AFC North.
I'm saying who they're playing against going up this next year. What's their over/under win total? You said 8.5, 9.5?
8.5.
8.5.
I mean, they've hit 9.
It's right there. Years. I mean, I think it's a perfect number for you because I can count 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, and I'll give them one of those. So I have 8 off rip. I mean, officially, I would say I'll probably take the under. But it's close.
Yeah, I mean, you're right.
Really close.
You're absolutely right. And I don't know what they put up last year. I know it was record numbers, but they're going to have to put up at least 32 points a game to even.
Yeah.
I mean, it's going to be crazy. Moving up next, we have the playoff teams that did come out of the AFC North. The Steelers took the wild card 10-7. Obviously, the additions here, Aaron Rodgers, DK Metcalf, Jalen Ramsey, Darius Slay. Now, this also came out. We don't also add Malik Harrison, Kenneth Gainwell, Max Sharping, and Mason Rudolph as their backup. They took Caleb Johnson out of Iowa, which I thought was a pretty good pick. And then they brought in Robert Woods for some wide receiver depth. Lose Minka Fitzpatrick, George Pickens, Najee Harris, and obviously Wilson and Fields are both gone. This did also just come out that Rodgers and Metcalf will not play in the final preseason game as well. I understand, right? We all understand. Nobody wants to have what happened in the Jets, right, with Aaron Rodgers. And maybe, I guess, practice, you get enough synergy with those two guys. They're both obviously veterans. Aaron Rodgers has been around here forever. DK Metcalf comes over from the West to the East Coast. Are you concerned at all that these two guys are not playing at all in the preseason?
Not really. This is kind of one of my sleeper picks this year as well, too. I actually really like the Pittsburgh Steelers. I love what they did in the draft. You talk about Caleb Johnson. I think if you're looking for a guy, a running back, a rookie running back who could be that Bucky Irving of last year, it's this guy right here. I think that he's got all the tools. And if I'm worried about his situation, right, I'm worried about Jaylen Warren, who has literally had opportunity after opportunity and never really done much with it. I think he's averaged like 12 or 13 fantasy points for his entire career, even in some of his best stints that he's had. So, yeah, I think Caleb Johnson's going to be a monster. I love the Sawyer pick that they got at linebacker out of Ohio State. I think he's a culture fit. I think he's a perfect fit to plug right into there. You re-sign TJ Watt. I thought it was hilarious to watch Rodgers and DK. They're doing a little podcast, and they had Cam Hayward on, and they're just roasting Cam Hayward about this hold-in after he just signed a contract, which I thought was funny because we always say this, right? Like, you have to be comfortable enough with somebody to be able to bust a joke on them and have that relationship. You know what I mean? And so to me, if I'm looking at signs for chemistry and camaraderie, all them sitting there chopping it up, laughing about it is a great sign to me for a football team. So yeah, I mean, I love their defense, and I think by the end of the year, the kid from Iowa could be really good. And Gene, while I agree with you, I think Rodgers is the ultimate me first player. I think Rodgers in his last year is going to be less worried about throwing sidearms and whipping the ball, especially after what happened last year in New York, where you had Devontae and you had Garrett Wilson and you had the weapons that you had, and it turned out the way that it did. I think that was a humbling moment for him. I think going through this offseason was a humbling moment for him by not having a lot of traction or places that he was going to be able to fall when he thought that he would. I think him announcing that this is his last year, I'm not saying I'm picking them to win the Super Bowl, but I think their odds are fairly juicy for the division.
Well, based on the moves that they made, you can see that the Steelers are definitely trying to go all in, and why would you not? Especially if Aaron Rodgers comes out and says pretty much that to your point, he didn't say it is. He goes, but he would probably see that this is his last year.
And plus 525 with Mike Tomlin, the way that Tomlin plays hardball, the way that division always goes, it's always so close, it's always nitty gritty. I think it's good value at plus 525 if I'm making a bet.
Well, let's talk a little bit about some fantasy targets here, because obviously going into the season, there wasn't a whole lot to talk about with the Pittsburgh Steelers losing George Pickens, who obviously still did not have a fantasy year after Justin Fields made the switch to Russell Wilson. Aaron Rodgers, I obviously is going to be available. There's most of the drafts that I've taken, he has not even been picked. So I mean, that could be a sleeper target. DK Metcalf is going to get his share. So obviously, I think if you're going to target anybody on the Pittsburgh Steelers right off the rip, it's going to be DK Metcalf. To your point, I think Caleb Johnson will eventually get the touches. I think Jalen Warren is going to start off the season getting the majority of the touches, but it will transition in. Both of those guys are going about the same area. So obviously, the fantasy numbers are going to. The biggest question that I have is I just don't like Arthur Smith. I don't like what he did in Atlanta. You had all of those weapons and you couldn't do jack shit. You took carries away from Bijan Robinson. You limited his carries, and I know I'm saying his name wrong. Jeremy, put it into the private chat again with my enunciations, because I know that he came out and he's like, I don't know why everybody keeps calling me Bijan. It's like Bajan, I think Bajan or something of that nature. So
okay,
Potato, so I apologize.
Tomato.
I apologize, Bajan. If you watch any of the show, which I'm sure you do, I butcher names on the reg. My
Bijan,
biggest thing
is
Arthur.
Apologize. I can care less. Just want to put that out there, please.
Well, I'm a man of the people. So Arthur Smith is my biggest question mark again in Pittsburgh. And then he comes out and said he is having to change his offense on the fly based on the personnel that he's receiving. And I'm like, okay, that makes sense. But on the same token, who do you have that's like, I need to change my entire offense around? You had Russell Wilson. Is Aaron Rodgers? Is Aaron Rodgers a statue to compare to Russell Wilson? Are you changing the entire? I just don't like Arthur Smith, man. I really don't. I think probably you should just stick to DK Metcalf and RBs, to be perfectly honest. I will say this, though. I think Robert Woods has a great resurgent year here, because if you ever watch Aaron Rodgers and you looked at the Allen Lazards and stuff like that, when it came to the number ones being covered, he always dumps those little cross routes. And I think that's going to be great.
Yeah, look at Randall Cobb. I mean, Randall Cobb is the perfect example of that for you as well, too, of how he used to just use guys to mitigate the slot and play off of it, and for sure.
Yeah.
I'll say this. I think fantasy. We talk about fantasy targets, right? And target is always something that we use as a term. To me, this is if I find value at a certain point, if I see DK Metcalf falling around 10 picks, then I'm interested. Probably at current ADP where he's at right now, I'm probably not in, just because I don't know.
I think he's going like third and fourth rounds.
Like, I think this is going to be a really good under team to bet this year when I'm looking at it, because I think their defense is going to be legit. I think Slay, Ramsey, Porter, the back end, the linebackers, the line, it's going to be good. And so because of that, I think Arthur Smith, listen, with just what he said, right? As things change, as personnel changes, his scheme should change. I 1,000% agree with that. I think every coach should have that attitude. When it comes to DK, real quick, I just want to address this from Gene. 90 catches, 1,200 yards, 10 touchdowns, over under for each stat. I will take under 90 catches. I will take slightly over 1,200 yards, and I will take over 10 touchdowns.
I'll take the under. I'll take the under across the board.
Okay.
And the only reason why I'm saying that is I think he's definitely capable of putting up those numbers. But when I look at the wide receiver room, I have DK Metcalf, I have Calvin Austin III, I have Robert Woods and Pat Freiermuth. So obviously, if I'm a defensive coordinator, I'm targeting one person. I'm making everyone else beat me. And I think that that's just the only reason why. I will say I do think I think if you do see some Calvin Austin or Roman Wilson or Robert Woods or even Freiermuth start to get a little bit more targets and more shares, then I think that DK Metcalf upside gets really, really good. I mean, if we're looking at Jamar Chase last year, who led everything, 127 total receptions, 1,700 yards, and 17 TDs. So when I look at an absolute triple crown winner like that last year, those are enigmas. I think that, it's still a good season, even regardless of 12 to 13 touchdowns. I just don't think that Aaron Rodgers gets there. And especially if we've seen anything out of Arthur Smith's piss poor offense, it's very run heavy. And especially when you get to the goal lines, that's where it's going to be the workhorse behind the back. And I think that's going to take a little bit of the touches away as well.
And I think those numbers, you're 100% correct, Gene. Those numbers are very lofty in terms of goals. 90 catches is a lot. And I don't think he's going to be I don't think he's going to get 3 or 4 targets on every drive that they have if they're going to score a touchdown. I think he might get 1 or 2. Now, I do think he's still going to be a big play threat in that offense. And I also think that there will be a lot of utilization at the goal line of jump balls to him on fade routes, because Rodgers knows he can throw it up to a place where only DK can go get it. And,
if Arthur Smith lets him call the play,
may the chips fall as they lie. Well, one thing you know about Aaron, he's not
afraid
to
change the play
or change the play whenever
I'm sure he'll have autonomy.
So
I mean, to the point with those numbers, if DK Metcalf was T. Higgins on the Bengals, I would take probably overs across the board, because that team's going to play from behind the whole time. I don't see the Steelers playing from behind that much to get those types of numbers. And are those his yearly projections? I'll wait for that.
I have no idea.
I'll wait for that. Let's get to the Kings of the AFC North. The Baltimore Ravens, 12-5 last year, looked absolutely unstoppable at times. DeAndre Hopkins is back. We picked him up on a little bit at the end last year. Derrick Henry locked up through 2027, and they also extended Rashad Bateman. We lose Justin Tucker, which is one of the best kickers in the NFL due to his Deshaun Watson-like charges and tendencies.
Allegedly.
Yes, allegedly.
Allegedly.
Speaking of which, has that even done anything, or is he just kind of going to go away quietly? Because we did have the one kicker. Was it from the Rams or something that got falsely charged, and that did come out and get dropped, and then found out it was false? And I think he got picked up by the Bills.
So that was Matt Ariza. I don't know what his name was. Yeah, basically he got accused in college. They call him punt god or something like that, kicking god. I don't know. He's got some kind of online moniker or name. And he got picked up, and he's probably
he was a punter.
I think he's the best punter in the NFL.
He's on the Chiefs.
Yeah,
hanging out with Booker. Well, they're honestly, the Baltimore Ravens didn't do a whole lot in the offseason, and let's be honest, they did not have to. That team was pretty much solidified all around. If it wasn't for a Mark Andrews drop, if you want to call it that, I think that Lamar Jackson would also come back and say that he probably could have placed that ball a little bit better. We'd be talking probably them in the Super Bowl as well, or at least going up against the Bills for a showdown that we all wanted. I think this team is still the top of the North. It's the team to beat. I think it's them and the Bills coming out of this AFC. Fantasy targets, obviously Lamar Jackson had him last year. Dude just is out of control. Derrick Henry, after our little our talk last time about people taking Ashton Gentry over Derrick Henry, I started to see some really crazy shit happen on fantasy drafts. I've seen Derrick Henry go as the 4th pick, 5th pick. Yeah, so that to me was a little wild. But obviously Lamar Jackson, Derrick Henry are your two absolute lock targets out of the Baltimore Ravens. Now, Mark Andrews had a very off year for Mark Andrews, as well as Travis Kelce did. Maybe that was because of just the age that they're getting at. But when we talked about tight ends, we talked about, the top tier tight ends and then the drop offs. It was always Travis Kelce and Mark Andrews. I think Mark Andrews has a bounce back year. I don't like where he's going. He's going up there with Evan Ingram, a little bit obviously ahead of Travis Kelce as well. But I do believe also with Isaiah likely being out to start the season, I think that gives Mark Andrews the confidence, and he will rebuild the confidence. Everyone came around him. Lamar Jackson, the team said it's not just on him. I think that he picked him up. I think he's got a chip on his shoulder this year. If I was him, I would have been working my ass off in the offseason to make sure I'm in peak physical condition. I think he comes back, and I think he comes back with a vengeance. I don't think that you have any issues drafting him. Outside of him, Zay Flowers had some nice blips last year. Rashad Bateman had some nice touchdowns towards the end of the year, but I think that that's going to be one of those things that it's just going to be spread around too much. It's kind of one of those things like with Kansas City Chiefs and Patrick Mahomes. He just spreads the ball around too much to have one player that is just an absolute stud fantasy impact. So when you look at that wide receiver core, you look at DeAndre Hopkins, you look at Rashad Bateman, and then you look also at Zay Flowers. I don't know if you're going to get the pop that you think that you're going to get out of that, especially where Zay Flowers is going. But that's just my opinion. And that's why we're all here.
That's why we're all here. That is actually factually correct. I do like that statement. Listen, in a year that Lamar Jackson threw the ball more than he's ever thrown in his entire NFL career, and had a hell of a year. But in that year, Zay Flowers finished wide receiver 25 in fantasy. And are you telling me that let's also keep in mind too, their defense was ass last year. They were not good.
I wouldn't call them ass, but they definitely underperformed.
Secondary was trash. They go out and they get Jair Alexander to shore that up, and we'll see, is he long in the tooth? Did Green Bay see some writing on the wall that they, Baltimore's going to take a chance on? We'll kind of go from there. But I do like that you pair alongside Williams, Marlon Humphrey. I think it's a great back end to be able to, if they stay healthy, to be able to be good. And I think that's one of the reasons why I'm not as in on Baltimore this year from a fantasy perspective, because I do think having a defense that good will, how do I say this? They're not going to have to score as much. And Harbaugh is one of the best head coaches in the NFL. He knows exactly what he has. I can see a lot more running. I can see a lot more timeshare. You get, Keaton Mitchell now back healthy, who was, a nice change of pace guy they had for him. How is that going to affect Derrick Henry? Are they going to try to keep Derrick just as fresh as they possibly can for the end run? Because we all know once it gets cold outside, that is when it becomes the hardest to tackle Derrick Henry. So you need and want Derrick Henry for that stretch run in the playoffs. The number to me, I thought would be a little bit more even between Cincinnati, Baltimore, and Pittsburgh. And when I saw Pittsburgh at plus 525, that's why I thought that it was a decent bet to be able to take to win the division. So that was just kind of my opinion on it. I still think Lamar will have a great year. Baltimore will be a great team. Their win total is what?
11.5. And I was going to say that to your point. The win total between the Ravens and the Steelers is only one game.
Yeah. The one thing that's always tough with these division winners, right, is that you play all the division winners from the year previous. So you have to kind of mitigate that schedule as well. And it's never the easiest when you're trying to navigate some of those big time weeks. So it'd be interesting. But I think 11.5, I'm probably on the over there. Probably on the over there.
Yeah, because I'll agree with you. You know, they won 12 games last year, but there was a couple heartbreaks in there. That could have very well easily been 14 or 15.
Absolutely.
You know, there was a couple games as well. We talked about the Mark Andrews drop of being in the playoffs, but you know, there was a couple games where, you know, Lamar Jackson just missed a wide open throw. And as somebody that watched him, because I had him, I saw it. And he'll tell you the same thing, that they definitely lost some games that they should have won. I think that you're absolutely right. I think the 11.5 is gravy train. And for those who new to the show, we don't really bet the season totals. I find more value just targeting certain games if that happens. But you know, to your point, what you just said about the running back room, I absolutely love that running back room. I took Keaton Mitchell last year, like at the very last pick of the draft was my sleeper pick. He didn't come back.
He got hurt, you know. So
yeah.
it was just,
well, he was already out. Yeah. I, you know, he didn't come back. I love Justice Hill as well. I think to your point, you have Derrick Henry that's just going to run you over like a bowling ball. And then you got Keaton missing Justice Hill that's going to juke you out. So it's like, okay, what mindset do I get in? Okay, I'm getting in to take on a running ball. Oh crap! Now I got to be light on my feet and try to catch this guy.
Yeah,
and
how
then,
do you want it?
Now I have a speedster guy going out there. Now Lamar Jackson goes the other way. I think that they have a lot of opportunities there to just completely juke out anybody. So again, fantasy targets there. Draft Lamar Jackson with ease. I've seen Lamar Jackson go around one. Now. There's a lot of controversy with drafting quarterbacks, but when you look at the point totals, okay, the theory is you get the guys that have the highest point totals, which usually running backs. Obviously, that's why they go early. And even when you look at some of the wide receivers, even the number ones that are going to put up great numbers still don't come up to the projected totals of running backs, right? Then when you look at the drop offs, now when you're talking about the total points, it's just like on ESPN, it's like 430 or something like that. Like the next highest running back, I think, is like 320. I'm not saying that you need to draft Lamar Jackson in the first round or even the second round. I'm just saying when it comes down to it and you're starting to feel comfortable about what you have, draft that man with ease. That's all I'm saying. Him, Josh Allen, Joe Burrow, draft with ease.
Yeah, he was incredible last year. I mean,
he was a champion last year.
41 touchdowns, 4 picks, rushed for 900 yards, 4 touchdowns, so 45 total touchdowns. He scored 434.4 fantasy points, which the next closest person was Josh Allen at 385. So yeah, I mean, it was pretty
arguably he won me numerous weeks by himself, 100%.
Unbelievable.
I think I had 1 week where I had like at one point that I had like 0 points or something, and he put up 60 points to win the game.
I think that's why I say for me, in a year that Lamar does that, a year that Lamar goes that crazy,
hard to repeat.
His best. First of all, it's hard to repeat. You know how many times? Not to get back to Jamar Chase. Do you know that the wide receiver 1 in fantasy the year before, I think it's something like 10 years in a row, has not repeated as wide receiver 1 the very next year. It's just really hard to do. And so, but that was more to my point too about Zay Flowers. It's like, okay, in a year that Lamar has like that, his best weapon and best wide receiver finishes wide receiver 25 in fantasy.
And for those of you that are saying, well, Jeffrey, but we just talked about Jamar Chase being number 1. I will say that he might be the one to buck the trend just simply for the fact that the Bengals are going to have to put up 40 points a game to win.
Volume. Now, you also got to listen, football is football, right? Like we were saying this about a guy like James Conner, right? Like health is going to always come into play here as well, too. Can you keep both sides healthy? Be interesting to see. Hopefully Al Golden can do a little bit more something on that Bengals defense, but
absolutely.
I don't have hope.
And to the 3 times point here, is this Lamar's year to win? I think that it's win or bust this year for Lamar Jackson. First of all, I think he got robbed of the MVP last year. I think they gave it to Josh Allen just because Lamar had won it a few times already, but there was no reason stat wise or anything else wise that would tell me that Josh Allen should have won that MVP, and I will die on that hill. Let's get into the other. I'm dying on the hill, Jeff. I'm not going to die anyway because ain't nobody going to climb my way up there because I'm just going to pick them off as they come up. The NFC North, the best conference in the NFL. The Detroit Lions are sitting pretty up there. 15
the best conference, the best division in the NFL.
Yes, best division. I apologize.
Okay.
Not the NFC is not the best conference. Arguably lacking quarterback play, but we could get into that at another time. Detroit Lions 15-2. Wow. Just a historic storybook year that unfortunately did not come through fruition for the Detroit Lions. They added DJ Reed, Roy Lopez, Grant Stroud. They brought in Kyle Allen for a little bit of depth. They didn't really have to do much. They really did not have to do much. They extended Jameson Williams, got the 5th-year exercise. I'm sure they're going to be working on a contract extension there. They are the king of the North, and they are going to be the one that everyone is going on. Obviously, a pretty good roster as well. The dark horse in the room is no Ben Johnson, right? I mean, we're all going to talk about that. Ben Johnson's gone. Was Ben Johnson the sole heir of the offense? I'll tell you this. I think Dan Campbell had more involvement in that offense than we realized. When we talked about the going forward on the 4th downs, we saw it obviously in the preseason with the Bears, but that is preseason. I don't know who exactly that came from or whatever, but I think Dan Campbell had a little bit more influence on that offense than we realized. I don't know who they brought in as their offensive. Oh, they promoted the assistant offensive coordinator out. So obviously, still going to have the same mindset, the same, X's and O's from this. However, 15 is an extremely large number. A lot of those were obviously won on some last second plays. They're over under this year's 10.5, and they are leading the division at 10.5. That's going to be a lot of games. I think that when we look at the win totals, and we're going to get into the Bears and the Packers, I think the Vikings are going to come back to earth a little bit. Everybody's super high on JJ McCarthy. You know how I feel about rookie quarterbacks until I see it. I ain't buying it. The Packers, I think, are going to be a little bit better than they were last year. However, fantasy targets, obviously the number one target is going to be Jahmyr Gibbs. I mean, there's just no ifs, ands, or buts around it. Montgomery is going to be a safe backup. Here's where I get a little bit questionable with Amon St. Brown, Jameson Williams, and Sam Laporta. I think Jameson Williams has a better year than St. Brown this year. Yeah, I'm gonna throw that out
better
there.
Year in what kind of scoring? Because I'm down to make a bet like this. What in scoring in terms of overall fantasy production, in terms of
I'm saying yards and touchdowns.
You think he has more yards and more touchdowns than Amon St. Brown?
Yep.
I will. Jeremy, put it on the board. Okay. Mark us down, for a gentleman's bet on who has more yards and touchdowns this year, Jameson Williams or Amon St. Brown. I will take Amon-Ra all day long, and you can have the drug addict, degenerate gambler over there and Jameson Williams.
One of us, bro. One of us. I'm always going with the one of us. And let me tell you why. If you looked at some of the games from last year, Jameson Williams had beat so many people over the top where throws were missed. I know of one just specifically that I watched because I do believe Buff had him and I was going against him. And I do remember the one that he had. It was like an 85-yard bomb that he just went down and scored a touchdown on. I think that deep threat, I think that just a bigger receiver. I like Jameson Williams this year to come out and emerge as the Detroit Lions' number one receiver.
That's definitely a hot take. I don't mind it at all. I'll say this is that I have a lot of issues with the Lions and themselves. You lose both coordinators. Aaron Glenn leaves to go to the Jets, and you lose Ben Johnson, the orchestrator of that offense. But even furthermore, you lose two offensive linemen who were both, really good and key cogs for what you did offensively. That said, getting back a David Montgomery, who you have healthy now, to go along with that two-headed monster and Jahmyr Gibbs is always great. It's the one thing that always gives me pause about Gibbs, though, is Montgomery falling in and scoring 3 touchdowns in the first half, while
you never know who's going to get the ball
down there, and all of a sudden they just decide to hand it to David Montgomery because it's the goal line back.
Yep.
And, it's football. It is what it is. But I still think that if you look at their roster now, I think they will have to score because their secondary is still absolute trash. And unless Aiden Hutchinson comes back and just absolutely wreaks havoc on everybody, I don't really see a lot here from their defense that I would be too worried about personally. So
10.5. What are you thinking?
I'd take the over 10.5. I think. I still think it's really close. But 10.5 just seems like a game low to me. I think
the only thing that I think that the biggest issue is the Vikings and the Bears.
The fear of the unknown is really tough in this division. That's why when I made a bet, I'll put the bet up next week. Basically, I picked each division winner, which I think can happen, which are a little bit of a long shot. But it was an 8-team parlay and it was $5 for 120 something thousand bucks. Don't stop shaking your head, okay?
I'm not. I'm shaking my head at my wife.
Why? What's she doing?
I don't know if you know the sun.
I can see the shadow.
Yeah, we can see her in the mirrors over there. But
it's like a movie when you're like getting some sun and then somebody comes and stands over you, and you're like, wait, what's blocking the sun now?
Yes. Interesting. I think they all good points. I think that the team is still going to be good. I think 11 wins is probably locked in.
Yeah.
Just when you look at what the Packers did last year, were obviously shaky with Matt LeFleur's offense, which we'll get to that, but they still racked up 11 wins. I think that I think you can take that. I don't know. I don't want to see it, but we'll see what happens. The Vikings. Obviously coming through 14-3 last year. Now this one is the biggest one. So we talked about also with the Lions, as you were talking about, the decimation of injuries that they had last year. Well, they had
it was insane.
15 defensive players on the IR or out.
It was insane.
Yeah. So the Vikings 14-3 last year. Okay. Obviously there was some magic involved with that, and Sam Darnold, and obviously he did see ghosts at the end of the year. From 14 wins, we're dropping that down to 8.5. That is a huge drop when it comes to something of that nature. When I looked at the things here, the departures. Okay, I didn't see anybody. Obviously, we had some turnover in the quarterback room. Cameron Bynum left, and Patrick Jones II off of the edge. That's all that we saw that had literally left.
Mm-hmm.
We brought in Aaron Jones and Jordan Mason, which I love Jordan Mason here this year. I think at some point Jordan Mason might actually compete for 50% touches against Aaron Jones. The backfield's good. The only thing we're talking about differently here is the quarterback. And you really think that JJ McCarthy versus Sam Jones Darnold is a 5-game difference? Obviously, Jordan Addison being suspended. I think he's suspended for the first 4 games. You still have Justin Jefferson back there. And again, with that running back room, TJ Hawkinson, obviously a very serviceable tight end. And we didn't talk about Sam Laporta on the Detroit Lions. That is somebody that we're looking at. Don't think I'd draft him. But, I mean, do we really see 5-game difference here? Just based on the quarterback? Sam Darnold?
So they have TJ Hawkinson, I believe, right?
TJ Hawkinson is their tight end.
And then we still have Justin Jefferson. You still have Jordan Addison.
Jalen Naylor.
Yeah.
Serviceable slot receiver.
Here's my issue is that I've never been a JJ McCarthy fan. I understand the kid's a winner. I understand he's been great.
I've never handing the ball off.
I've never seen JJ McCarthy make a throw that made me go, wow, that's an NFL throw. And then it's like I pay attention to a lot of the beat writers and the practice reports and guys who I respect and stuff like that. Do you know that I believe I heard this the other day, that they have the exact same odds to win the Super Bowl as the Green Bay Packers? The Minnesota Vikings have the exact same.
Their win total is a game apart. So, I mean, I guess I could see
20-1, which means that somebody who had a nice chunk of change came and laid something down on them to move that line. there's a lot of reports that people love this kid. Love him.
I've seen it. Yeah.
And it's like, okay, let's project it out a little bit more. O'Connell is the quarterback whisperer. He's done great with everybody who's ever been there at quarterback. And this guy said, that's the guy that I want. And not only is that the guy that I want, I'm going to let this guy who just led us to 14 wins walk for free and roll with this other one.
Yeah.
As much as I want to not like the Vikings, and I
got to
really
have confidence at that point. Yeah.
All the signs point to this kid could be it. And this week 1 matchup that we have, that they're going against each other, which it could be it. You know what I mean? Like this could be what we see for years and years to come with Caleb Williams and with JJ McCarthy. Like that might just be the next 12 years that we see in this division. And so it's scary because I really want to take this under and I really want to fade Minnesota a lot. And now I just have to not bet them until I see, or bet for them or against them until I see what happens. And Flores, here's my other thing too. What's the spread week 1 against the Bears?
2.5, I believe.
They're catching 2.5, right?
No, they're favored.
Who is, Minnesota or Chicago?
Minnesota's favored.
Minnesota's favored. Okay. Like Flores knows that Ben Johnson offense because he's had to coach against it for the past few years. And
maybe, but Ben Johnson also said that he made a completely different offense based on Caleb Williams. I'm just saying that's what he said. He goes, I developed a whole new offense for Caleb Williams and the Chicago Bears.
Okay.
But I mean, at the end of the day, it's X's and O's. How many different plays can you run?
Exactly. But and we know Flores will have that defense ready to go. And so that's going to be very interesting. I'm going to watch that game very closely week 1 as well, too, because I think that's going to be a hell of a matchup as well.
Well, you know my philosophy on this, and we've talked about this numerous times. Unless something just jumps out completely glaring, week 1 to me is like, hey, week 1 is a week to take long shots, underdogs. Like that's the week to really just look for the value, in my opinion, because we've talked numerous times about how weeks 1 through 4 are basically like the new preseason, especially with 17 games. So yeah, to your point, I until I start to see some stuff, get some stuff on film, start to be able to look at the flow of things, I usually don't touch week 1 anyway. But yeah, it is
interesting to me though, because you have so many of these key division matchups that are really going to matter for something, right? Like what we have Dallas and Philly, I think, kicking it off.
They kick it off Thursday, yes.
Thursday night, and then we're going to
Chargers, Bucks, Falcons,
and then we're going to finish back on the back end, right? We're going to get Caleb and JJ. We also get Jordan Love and the Detroit Lions going into Lambeau to play that game as well. So like week 1,
juicy,
man,
juicy. God, let's get into some more juice here with the Green Bay Packers. 11-6 last year, which was honestly, it was a questionable season for the Green Bay Packers last year. There was a lot of ups and downs. There's a lot of question marks. Their wide receiver room was absolute, just a carousel. Christian Watson didn't play half the time. Then he came back, looked okay. Then he got hurt again. Just again, a team with 11 wins, 11-6. Not many changes happening. Not too many changes happening here. Then you added Matthew Golden. Savion Williams in the 3rd round. They added some offensive tackles, some linebackers, and again, not much. You did lose Jair Alexander, which you already mentioned. Josh Myers, AJ Dillon, Eric Stokes, all gone. But majority of this team is held together, and why would it not be? Because at the end of the day, yeah. Oh God, if I hear this one more time, how many times last year did we hear? This is the youngest roster in the NFL. This is the youngest roster in the NFL. Look at what they're doing, being the youngest roster. It was like watching Chris Collinsworth call a Patrick Mahomes or an Aaron Rodgers game. You just want to throw up in your mouth because I heard it so many times. But
tough being a Bears fan sometimes out of here.
No, it's not. It's just something you don't want to hear. Fantasy targets here. I love Josh Jacobs here. Love Josh Jacobs. I don't see Emmanuel Wilson pushing Josh Jacobs for touches. The only thing that would be interesting is if Josh Jacobs somehow tweaks something. Then that could be interesting. But Josh Jacobs is going to be an absolute workhorse for this team. Jaden Reed, Matthew Golden, Romeo Dobbs, Christian Watson. Again, I thought they dropped him. I know he's hurt, but no, just going to start on the pup list because he is as fragile as an egg. Matthew Golden. That seems to be one that everyone's targeting in fantasy football.
Yeah.
Again, the Packers have always come out and said we have no number one receivers. Mm-hmm. So if you have number one receivers, how can I draft you like a number one receiver? That's my biggest issue.
Yeah, they also haven't because they've been a terrible wide receiver room.
The most drop balls, I believe, in the NFL.
Yeah,
yeah, it's been bad. Tucker Kraft, was a serviceable tight end, and then they just stopped going to him. I think you had him last year, did you not? And ended up dropping him. I'm pretty sure you had him. And ended up dropping him. Again, for me, this Josh Jacobs or bust on fantasy. I mean, if you could get Matthew Golden later, but where he's being targeted as ADP, I don't think is worth it. Again, could completely break out, but if we're looking at numbers, we're looking at what this Green Bay Packer receiving core has done in fantasy numbers. Until I see it, but if you can get him late in the rounds, then absolutely, then go for it. But I don't think it's definitely something that you want to target in the 6th and 7th round.
I do really like Golden this year. I think this is one of the offenses that I will be targeting to be a part of in terms of maybe having multiple players on this team. Jordan
Love was a top 5 QB last year, was he not?
I was all in on Jordan Love. I've been all in on Jordan Love. They had a great little run right there. Obviously, he got a little nicked up and hurt, unfortunately. I don't think he was as good as he was in that run that he had the year before when they came out and just absolutely curb stomped the Cowboys. So, yeah, I mean, I think things definitely could have been better. I also have a problem with their defense this year. I think if you look at it, there's a reason that they're offering, 2 firsts, a second and a third for Micah Parsons, trying to get something done with the Cowboys because that line is very average. You lose Jair Alexander. Your linebackers are okay, not great. And so if I'm looking at it from a wholesale perspective, I'm saying your defense isn't great. Your offense should be absolutely fine, but you're going to have to be playing up and down the field over and over and over again. So
I didn't hear the rumors of them trying to trade for Micah Parsons.
Yeah.
What were they trying to trade? What was the package?
I believe I saw it was 2 firsts, a second and a third or something like that they offered, and the Cowboys said no.
Well, at the end of the day, everyone still says that Micah Parsons will be signed with the Cowboys. But we can get into that. And
I think he might not. And I think they might just wait, franchise tag him next year, and then.
Well, at the end of the day, apparently. Apparently at the end of the day, what happened was Jerry Jones and Micah Parsons agreed to something at the beginning of last year or something of that nature. And then Micah Parsons, obviously, when all of these defensive ends started getting paid, he wants to be the highest paid, non-quarterback player. And Jerry Jones is like, no, we said this. But anyway, it's a mess. It's the Cowboys. It's nothing that we don't.
The way that supposedly it went down, and if it did, I think it's egregious, and I think it's fucked up, and I think Jerry's fucked up, is that he called him into his office to talk to him about something. And when Micah sits down without his agent, just by himself, he says, hey, what do we think about these numbers right here? And Micah's like, yeah, I mean, I don't know. I guess that sounds good. I'm not really sure. I don't really handle on contract negotiations normally, And so Jerry basically was like, oh, we had a handshake agreement, And it's so grimy and slimy to do some shit like that, It's like,
well, if you agreed on the numbers then why not just put the pen to paper right then and there, right? If you come into my office and I say, hey Jeff, how about 5 years, $200 million? You're like, yeah, that sounds good, great. I'm going to call your agent right now and we're going to get it whipped up right there, like that.
Perfect.
Why wait?
Because then there was no contact for 8 months during the season.
Right, because we
And
played
the
a season.
ended, and then now he's trying to be like, well, we already came to an agreement on something. It's like,
so
bro,
if that was the agreement, then you should have put it on pen and paper. End of the day.
And now Jerry's out here like, oh, well, also you got injured, you know? And do I want to pay somebody who gets hurt and blah, blah, blah? It's like, bro,
it's just,
come on.
It's a clown show.
It's crazy.
Well, what is
listen, just to say this about Green Bay, I want to love Green Bay. I want to love the Packers. I do. I've had been a big fan. I do. I have been a Jordan Love stan for a long time now.
You've been riding on the Packers junk for a couple years now.
When it wasn't cool to do so.
Can we say that? I was in the minority of standing up and saying I like the Packers, and everybody else was kind of like Jordan Love's terrible.
Nobody said that.
Okay. We have different recollections.
Other than me, and that's just my hate for the Packers.
Everyone else
loves Jordan Love.
For sure. So I do think that I would love to be all in them 8.5. I think the win total should be more than that. I believe so. I would.
Packers are 9.5.
9.5. Okay. Are they 9.5 on Hard Rock? What did I get them at?
I don't know.
1 second.
I think that I think this whole division depends on two teams: the Minnesota Vikings and the team we're about to talk to, the 2025 NFC North champion Chicago Bears. I think it just depends on those two teams. If those two teams can continue to produce at a high level, it's just going to eat away the win totals from the Lions and Packers. And, obviously, as we go into the Chicago Bears to start to break it down, Caleb Williams 1-0 in Lambeau Field. Obviously, that is a good stat to have. First quarterback to win there in quite a while. We did see some good stuff out of Ben Johnson and the Chicago Bears offense in the preseason. Caleb looked really, really good. He did miss a couple throws. I'll tell you, obviously, I got excited. You see that, and I'm going to be excited. You know what? I don't care. We're the offseason champs. We continue to be the offseason champs. I'm excited about it now, but I'm also realistic. I know I put out the video that said, obviously, we're winning the NFC North and Super Bowl's in sight. And for the players, that should be the mentality. As a fan, we need to just chill out for a second. And again, as I said numerous times on here, we just want to see progression. We want to see Caleb Williams and the Bears offense crawl themselves out of the cellar of the most pathetic offense in the division and elevate. And I think we started to see that. I don't care if they were playing against third string starters. I don't care who they were playing against. I saw the offense being executed. I saw Caleb Williams go out 93 yards passing the ball, hit some great throws. Obviously, there were some people wide open. I am absolutely in love with the personnel on this offensive side. When we talk about teams with just loaded weapons, I'm looking at obviously Caleb Williams. We didn't see DeAndre Swift, which I don't know what that, and I also didn't see Roschon Johnson. Okay, whatever. That is neither here nor there. Monagai, or however you pronounce it, and Homer did a very good job. But you have DJ Moore, Rome Odunze, Luther Burden III, who looked really, really good. Cole Kmet. You have Colston Loveland. And we saw Zachar Olamide Zacchaeus come out and look good as well. It looked to me like an offense that could throw the ball wherever is needed. And that's what you want to see coming out of the Chicago Bears going into this season. It looked to me like the people that were open were getting the ball. Caleb was actually getting through progressions. Again, I don't care who they were playing against. I saw a step forward. And that's all now I did see that he wasn't wearing proper socks, which caused a fine, which apparently his teammates paid. Interesting. So maybe the team synergy is actually there. Maybe DJ Moore's on board this year. I don't know. Absolutely loved everything I saw out of that. Obviously 5-12 last year. We're expecting a jump from that. The heartbreak in Washington, which I wish I could just erase out of my memory, just set the team in an absolute tailspin here. I love the offseason additions. We reworked the offensive line to where we have Braxton Jones, Joe 30, Drew Dahlman, Jonah Jackson, and Darnell Wright holding up the line. Kieran is going to be a good backup, a good break. Ryan Bates also, and Luke Newman. I love everything that they've done so far. The pieces are on the chessboard. Now it's time to make sure that we put them in the right place. Caleb, hopefully his mind just continues to focus and not outside things. I don't understand just the complete shit on by the media when it comes to Caleb Williams. Obviously, being the number one pick and being as outgoing, I guess, as he was, the things that he does, painting his nails and all that kind of stuff, whatever, it is what it is. Love what I saw out of the Chicago Bears this preseason so far, at least out of the few drives. 8.5, though, I don't know. I don't know, man. I'm keeping it realistic. I'm keeping
Take
it
them to win the North. You just said they're going to win the North. They're plus 500.
Well, obviously they're going to win the North. I just don't know if it's going to be, if they're going to win all 17 games or, are they going to give a couple to some people? Do they feel bad at the end of the year? After they start 13-0, do they start resting their players right then and there? I mean, there's a lot of things, a lot of variables. Of course, I'm always going to take them to win. As long as, again, we beat the Packers both games, I'm fine. That's progression in my opinion. But again, it is what it is.
It's very interesting because when I look at this roster and I look at your team, I think you probably have on paper the most talented roster in the entire division. I think your defense is really good. I think your defensive backs are good. I love your linebackers. I love your defensive line. All the pieces are right there.
They are.
We'll see if the moves that were made on the offensive line will come to fruition. I love your wide receiver room. I love Adunze. I love Luther Burden III. He was a monster at Missouri for a couple years. And then you have DJ Moore on the other side.
Colston Loveland, Cole Kmet.
I think one of the most encouraging things that I saw in that first series from Caleb Williams was Cole Kmet for 20 yards right on the seam.
And it wasn't the best throw, and Cole Kmet just went up and grabbed it.
But they ran this little off action that pulled the backer off, and the safety had to commit, and all of a sudden, boom, there he is, right? And that's what Ben Johnson's great at, is running that misdirection to confuse you on defense, and then, boom, there you have it. I have been a big Caleb Williams stan for a long time. I hope that the kid succeeds. There will come a moment this year where it will be a punch in your mouth moment, and they're going to look to him for leadership. And my question about this team is, will Caleb Williams be able to step up and rally them and bring them back from whatever spot that they're in and punch that through? And if they can get through that, if they can have that, and they can have that happen multiple times, sky's the limit for this team.
Well, I think we saw that last year. I mean, we saw it in 2 games where Caleb Williams went right down the field at the end of the game to put them in position. Then obviously the defense, the Commanders game is one of them. I can't remember what the other one is that the defense just let him go right down and get a touchdown or a field goal as well to lose. But yes, to your point, I want to see it when the money's on the table and it's Caleb Williams.
I want to see him be vocal. Yeah,
for sure. Yeah.
And not in that voice that he has sometimes, like I need a little depth in it. I need a little depth in that voice, when you're in there in the huddle, looking some grown men in the face, because look, we can say all we want to, but Caleb's been kind of handed this thing on a platter, I mean, he's been the golden boy. I will say this that I loved about Caleb last year is that there was a lot, It was a very dysfunctional year last year. It was for sure.
Terribly.
And there was a lot of times where he could have mentally checked out. He could have gone by the wayside and said, you know what, F this. I'm like, I'm out here taking grenade in the trenches, and I got to go sit up here in front of the media every single week and get lambasted, and I just got to sit here and take it on the chin. Like, no.
Yeah. Yeah.
And he did, and he did it with his head up, and he did it over and over and over again. And I'll always have respect for him for that. Like I said, I just need to see something small. It could even be game 1, week 1. Like something.
I think that this Bears
for me
team
to hop on this wagon, because right now I'm not on the over 8.5. I think there will be substantial growth in this team. I think they have a tough schedule, and I think 8 wins, 9 wins is absolutely a success. And you guys should take that and run with it if you can get it.
I think this defensive coordinator is going to get this defense ready. And we saw blips last year, right? We saw this defense just look absolutely monstrous at times. Not quite the monsters of the Midway. I think this Monday Night Football game is bigger in a lot of ways. because we saw the letdown that ended the last year, right? We saw the skid. I think we were 4-2 and then lost like 8 in a row or something of that. We saw the skid at the end of the year. We saw the dejection at the end of the year. That defense, I think, has something to prove. And I'm looking at you, Tyreek Stevenson. You have something to prove because Bears fans do not look at you the same after your antics in Washington. So with that being said, if we can stay healthy with Kyler Gordon and the boys, I do believe, yes, defense. And I think that get that off the screen. We're not doing that. I do believe that this Monday Night Football game, you're going to see a team very, very fired up. I hope that they can control it because they are going to be out to prove a lot of things. So I hope that they
can't be out of control. It can't be out of control because
absolutely.
It's just
that's our wrap up there on the NFC North. Of course, I'm taking the over. I'm taking the Bears to win the division. I'm taking the Bears to win the NFC and represent the Super Bowl because why would you not if you're a homer? Bless you. We are. So next week we do have the AFC South and the NFC South that we're going to be focusing on. However, I did want to touch on one point real quick on the AFC South, and that is the Indianapolis Colts.
Yeah.
They have named Danny Dimes the starting quarterback over Anthony Richardson.
Yeah.
Now, big buzz. We all knew that Anthony Richardson was not the polished quarterback coming in. Didn't have the reps. Didn't have the reps. And even when he started to get the reps, he got hurt. Didn't get those reps as well. Danny Dimes comes in, who I thought it was amazing. The QBR from last year was Anthony Richardson. It was like 31 or whatever, second to last. And Danny Dimes was last. So this is your quarterback room in Indianapolis. We've seen some amazing throws out of AR in the preseason. We know what he can do. We also know what Danny Dimes can do. And Indianapolis has come out and said this is not the end of Anthony Richardson. But I think that we have talked about numerous times about the mental mindset of quarterbacks and when you get benched and being able to come back. To me, mentally, Anthony Richardson is done in Indianapolis, and he needs to be shopped, moved on. He needs a fresh start. He needs a team that maybe I don't even know what the Indianapolis Colts are thinking. This team, do you really think that you're one quarterback away from going to the playoffs and Super Bowl? No, you're not. You'll be lucky to finish third in your division. I just don't understand. And again, maybe it's a little bit of a homer. I just think that the ceiling with Anthony Richardson is much, much higher than Daniel Jones, who has had 4 times the reps. I don't know, man. It's Indianapolis. I don't think they're going to trade him, though. I don't think they're going to get rid of him because the GM has come out. The GM has said numerous times about Baker Mayfield, Sam Darnold, Geno Smith, and the routes that they've taken to be a successful quarterback. But the only thing that he's also forgetting is they went to multiple franchises before they hit that home run. None of them stayed there. So I don't know. It's very interesting to me. And again, Anthony Richardson, one of the youngest quarterbacks in the league still. I don't know. How many games does Danny Dimes get before the lynch mob starts coming for the change?
Well, and real quick, just to kind of say something about the Baker Mayfield, Sam Darnold, Geno Smith thing. If you look at who their coordinators were during those times when they were bouncing around, they all had people who were legitimate, incredible offensive minds who were quarterback whisperers, right? Sam Darnold spent some time in San Francisco with Shanahan. You obviously had Baker Mayfield, who got to spend time not only with Stefanski, but also we got to spend time with Sean McVay in LA as well. And then we're going to talk about Geno Smith. He had Dave Canales, who kind of resurrected him from the dead as well, who ended up going to Tampa for a year, and then now is obviously the head coach for Bryce Young and those Carolina Panthers. So there was also some really good minds that were around them as well, too. Now, I do think AR has a great guy there in Shane Steichen, and I'm a huge Shane Steichen fan. I actually love the Colts roster. I think the Colts probably have the best roster and the best coaching staff in that division, in my opinion. And I do think this is like, if I was buying low on a team, I think this is a great time to buy low on the Colts. Now, AR, his time in Indianapolis is absolutely not over. We know Danny Dimes is very prone to getting hurt because of the way that he plays football. And I think that, in my opinion, this just came down to who do they think is going to be a better option to have them win football games? Because that division is very winnable this year. And I think if you look at a guy who has an under 50% completion percentage and has more interceptions than touchdowns in terms of Anthony Richardson, I can't allow that to go out there if the competition was as close as I hear that it was, and Danny Dimes maybe being slightly ahead of him in the preseason. So I don't mind the move at all. I also loved AR's comments after it. He talked about the relationship with Shane and about how he thinks it's a positive moving forward, that he's not down in the dumps about it, that he sees improvement in his game, that he knows where this can go, and that, you know, he I think he's going to be fine going forward. Absolutely.
Well, I mean, at the end of the day, those are the comments that you have to make, right? I mean, if you want to continue to have any type of a career in the NFL, you're not going to come out there and say this is the most ridiculous thing I've ever seen. At the end of the day, also, he has like $25 million that he has corralled already with his rookie contract. And and he also knows that somebody's going to pick him up. If not.
Can we also say this too, is that body language matters a lot when you're giving a delivery of something, and sitting there, chest up, head up, eye contact to every single person and delivering that, as opposed to looking around the room and maybe looking down a little bit and having negative body language, completely makes me think different about the situation.
I just want to go back to they can win the AFC South. Do you think that team can beat the Houston Texans and that defense?
Absolutely.
You are high.
Okay.
Can we make a bet that the Indianapolis Colts do not win that division?
I mean, I have it at 5-1.
I mean, the Houston Texans are obviously going to be the favorite with the defense.
3.5-1.
Nico Collins coming back. The Jacksonville Jaguars are expected to make a big leap this year, even though they have Duval as their head coach. The Tennessee Titans, I think that we both can agree, depending on Cam Ward, what's going to happen. I think it's going to be an interesting division, but I do believe the Houston Texans are years away from any other team.
We are going to break it down next week. So if you have an agreement or a disagreement, make sure you tune in next week to be able to hear our thoughts on the entire AFC.
Absolutely. Let's move over to a little bit of college football as we wrap up today's show. The Auburn Tigers are retiring Cam Newton's number this year. Deserved, right? Well deserved. You know, that program was in a shaky state when he got there. 1 year wins it. Really kind of set them on the trajectory of what they became as far as relevancy once again. Couldn't be happier for him. I don't agree with all of his takes all of the time, but obviously he's an intelligent man that knows how to present his arguments and present his cases. I don't know what anything else about him personally. I will just say that, you know, it's nice to see them doing that. I want to get your thoughts on that first, and then I have another question or another comment to make in regards to retirements.
I've never been a Cam guy, ever. I think he's an incredible talent. He was never like my favorite person, player, whatever it was. I'm happy that he's getting his jersey retired. I think it's definitely more deserved than Shedeur getting his jersey retired in Colorado. But it was still 1 year. Was it an incredible year? It was an incredible year that he had. I mean, it was a storybook. I'm sure they'll write a movie about it one day and about how incredible it was. And going from the depths of, you know, getting, you know, basically dismissed from, you know, Florida, or however you want to say that situation played out, to
for stealing a laptop,
to have a bidding war for you in the transfer portal, or what before it wasn't a transfer portal, but remember there was all that stuff about you know, Mississippi State, Ole Miss, Auburn, who was dropping the biggest bag for Cam. He ends up landing in Auburn, and then obviously leading them to, you know, to what he did. So good for Cam. Happy for him. You know, I know he's had a lot to say about, you know, his mental health and sometimes the stuff that he goes through, going from where he was to where he is now. In terms of being an NFL quarterback and having 8 kids and whatever it is, and, you know, how they view him now. And so I'm sure that is all really tough. And
he did come out and, you know, talk about his financial situation. You know, obviously wasn't the smartest, as none of us are when we have all that kind of money, and about how, you know, he's not really Superman for his kids anymore. He can't provide the same way that he used to. But with that being said, you mentioned Shedeur Sanders also retiring this jersey. I want to talk to somebody right now in regards to this, and I'm talking to you, University of Florida.
Yeah.
The fact that we're continuing to talk about these numbers, and you still allow someone to wear the number 15 of Tim Tebow, who was just ranked the all-time QB1, whatever the starting tier, whatever NBA one team, whatever you want to call it, college football one team. and you are still allowing people to wear the number 15 jersey is absolutely criminal.
Crazy.
Retire the damn jersey, University of Florida. Tim Tebow, with his energy and his charisma, put you back on the map for college football. You had not won a national championship until this era was ushered in. I have not seen another player in my life for the University of Florida give what they gave to that university day in and day out, and continues to be a spokesperson for the University of Florida. It is absolutely criminal that you have not retired his jersey. Pull your ass, get the ceremony done, and hang the jersey in the rafters, for God's sakes.
And from a Florida State fan, I will say it's criminal. You haven't done that yet.
I like it.
Yeah, I don't get it. Like 2 is retired at Florida State because of Dion. 17 is retired at Florida State because of Charlie Ward. I think in terms of what a player who meant something to a program, I think Tim Tebow is greater than both those guys. And I don't understand
Tim Tebow arguably
why
is
you
the
haven't.
most impact college player that has ever set foot on the field.
Yeah,
impactful. I'm not
I would
saying
say
the
this
best.
as well to FSU and even Florida too. Like Percy Harvin, that was another guy who was incredibly impactful for you guys as well too. You know, being able to hang with Hernandez.
I see what you did there.
Yeah.
It's
Peter Wark. Peter Wark as well too. My favorite college football player ever from Florida State. Retire 9. FSU, please.
Well, we are in week 0, Jeffrey, of college football. Are you ready for this season?
I'm nowhere near at all, but I am ready to open up the choppers like it's December 31st and fire away at some games next week on the 30th. So,
absolutely. I don't know. So we do have this week. We have Iowa State, Kansas 22-17 on Saturday. For the 23rd, and then we start the regular kickoff at the Thursday, the 28th, and then Friday, the Fighting Illini will take on Western Illinois with a whopping 47-point spread, and then we get into big boys.
What'd you just say?
You heard me.
47-point spread.
Yeah.
Who do the Illini have? That
well, so I don't know if you looked. I
saw somebody comment on the TikTok.
And thanks for everybody on the love on the TikTok. Love it, hate it, uninformed fan. You guys know your title. Hey, bro, I appreciate it all. Bring it on. Give me the goods. They brought back the majority of their starters. I do believe they finished the season 16th last year in the final rankings. What makes them jump up 4? I don't know. But this is why me and you talked about the preseason rankings and just not liking them at all. We'll see what happens. The more and more that I do look at some of the NFL squads, and I look, the University of Illinois has pumped out some pro players. Chase Brown's obviously from the University of Illinois. They've pumped out some players. It's just not
Mendenhall, one of the best.
Yeah, it's just not a juice squad where it's like wide receiver like Ohio State, something of that nature. Jeremy's alma mater, the Western Illinois. Is that also Tony Romo's? Didn't Tony Romo go there as well? Yeah. So with that being said, we are about to ramp up our schedule. Yes, I mean Rice. We're about to ramp up our schedules and we're about to add some more shows. So make sure that you stay tuned to the channel. We'll be adding the Friday show. Maybe we'll be adding the Monday show. We just don't know. I mean, Eastern one. Lots of good stuff, man. This is the beautiful time of year. This is me and Jeffrey's favorite time of the year. Obviously we have some other things going on in life as well. Jeffrey's had like his 15th kid, so he has a lot going on as well with his entire family. I have resigned back to the workforce, so we'll see how many shows that we can get in. But the goal would be one
this year.
I don't think I have time to get out there. I don't know. Do you want to fly to Vegas with me?
Maybe. It is my 40th next week.
We can fly to. I looked at it. I can fly to Vegas.
I got points.
Well, that's what I'm saying. Southwest.
Yeah.
I can fly to Vegas. We can leave early in the morning and actually catch the red eye on the way back and be there for 10 hours if we really wanted to.
You're losing 3 each way, so you're only there for 4, basically.
Well, no, we land there at like 9 o'clock in the morning, Vegas time.
Yeah.
And then you fly out at 11 o'clock at night, Vegas time.
Oh.
And then you're back here like at 7 o'clock in the morning. Yeah.
Send me the deets.
Yeah.
When do we have to sign up by
kickoff,
which is following week.
No, we have September 9th as our fantasy football draft.
It's not the 9th.
And the
6th. It's the 3rd.
No, it's the 6th. It's the day before, which is another reason why I was like, we should probably just do the in person and computer, because we're also counting on Mark to be able to. Yeah, September 3rd is the draft. The season kicks off September 4th. So
it's the night before.
So we're counting on Mark after an obliteration evening.
Yeah.
To go back and make sure that everything is put in before kickoff. Y'all wild. But yeah, we'll
breaking news here on the Uninformed Fan, just to cap off the NFC North. The Bears have signed Tyson Bagent to a 2-year, $10 million contract extension, maximum value of $16 million with incentives. So
and this is where I go back to the Kyle Trask situation as well. Tyson Bagent also drafted, has not played for anybody else other than that, gets $5 million a year. Trask is getting $2 million. That's where I went back to that situation. But it is also Illinois, so he's probably losing 60% to taxes. so it makes that a little bit more. So stay tuned to the channels. We're going to be adding the shows. Really appreciate all the love on the social medias, the comments in the chats, the new people. Thank you guys so much for jumping in. We will see you next week, Wednesday, as we break down the final divisions of the AFC and the NFC South. Jeffrey's Tampa Bay Buccaneers will be breaking down and talking about all the juiciness. Until then, if you do have to be driving over the weekend, please, for the love of God, stay out of the left-hand lane.
Be great.